Call to order the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for Thursday, October 7th. Would you please call the roll?
Member Garza. Member Peters.
Here.
Member Benedict.
Here.
Member Estrada.
Here.
Member Dugan.
Here.
Vice Chairman McBride.
Here. Chairman
Miller.
All right, well, I'm out of orders, but let's do the pledge now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any changes to the agenda, sir?
No changes, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair.
Vice Chair.
But I would like to acknowledge the fact that tonight will be Vice Chair McBride's last Planning Commission meeting. His term has expired. I believe he's been on the commission for 8 years now. So we're going to miss you, and thanks for all your service. Appreciate it. Council has appointed a new planning commissioner who will be seated at your next November meeting, at your next regular meeting. So thanks again, Michael. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I'm glad to do it. I certainly would have done it again if I had the same thing. I met a lot of people on here that I'm really happy that I've met, and I don't think I met anybody that I disagreed with too much. We've had differences of opinions, but that's what this place is for. It's for everyone to have their difference of opinion and get it out and make sure that everybody out here gets the right thing for them. All right, has everyone had a chance to go over the minutes?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
So motion and second, could I get a vote, please? Or do we just do that one more roll?
We just vote.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and what we'll be doing here tonight is everyone's going to get a chance to talk that wants to talk. And you guys can talk all night long if you want to. I know that they'll just love it. First, what we're going to do is we'll do a presentation. The person from the city will stand up. They give the presentation. After they give the presentation, the board will have a chance to ask questions of them. Then after that, the representative from whoever is looking to have something changed will stand, give their presentation, and we will be able to ask questions. If there's anyone in the audience that has a question of them or of us, we would ask that you wait until it's all finished with, and we'll invite you up. There's a 3-minute time limit on your speaking, and you're more than welcome to go over what you want to. We'd like to ask that you don't repeat something that someone else has said, because once they've said it, it's been said. We don't need to have it go over and over on the same thing. And then it'll come back to us, it'll be voted upon. Okay, the first one is DSA 21-0018, major site plan for Sam's Club. And that is Mr. Gagliardi.
Thank you, Vice Chair McBride. And I also want to call attention to the fact that this presentation will be the covering of DSA 21-00023, the preliminary re-subdivision plat. So I am covering two applications this evening, the major site plan and the preliminary re-subdivision plat for Casa Grande Auto Park. A little bit of background, this area is located within the Mission Royale Planned Area Development Zone District at the former Sam's Club site, just south of State Highway 287 Florence Boulevard and just east of Interstate 10. This area has been commercially designated since the creation of the Mission Royale Planned Area Development Zone about 21 years ago, and has allowed a variety of commercial uses. In February of this year, however, City Council voted to allow automobile sales and service use to this area. There had been existing development standards in place primarily to address compatibility issues between the residential development further east within the Mission Royale PAD and the commercial development, which was approved for this area. Some of those existing development standards were the requirement for a 25-foot wide landscape buffer abutting the residential area, a 30-foot wide water line and access easement, which partially overlaps that area, was established with a previous easement, and certain development standards such as the maximum building height was 35 feet, except for any structure within the first 75 feet of the residential area would be limited to 26 feet in height. Also, there were certain standards that were incorporated with the construction of the single-family residential area that helped address some potential compatibility concerns with it being so close to the commercial area, such as the presence of the 8-foot wall behind the residential area instead of the standard 6-foot wall, and the fact that these residences are limited to single-story. That helps insofar as 2-story homes would provide more views onto the commercial area, which could adversely impact those properties. That overlay, that shows you that overlay of the 30-foot existing water line and access easement. Now, when City Council was considering adding the automobile sales and service use to the PAD with Planning Commission's recommendation to Council, there were some additional development standards added to the commercial area with regard to addressing some of those potential other adverse impacts caused by automobile sales and service use. They dealt with lighting, noise, and visual standards. So with regard to lighting, one of the new development standards is that any new lighting is to be LED, lighting from poles, signage, and buildings are to have no light trespass at the outer perimeter of the property adjacent to the residential development. Light pole maximum height is 35 feet, and that's what the existing light poles at Sam's Club are, except any light poles within 75 feet of residential areas can be no taller than 25 feet. That was a new standard is prior to this update in the zoning, there hadn't been any sort of development standard with regard to lighting. Use of loudspeakers is prohibited in this zone district because that was one of the concerns of some negative impact that could be the result of an auto dealership. And any auto body repair is to occur completely within a building. As far as visual considerations, vehicles awaiting repair must be behind a 6-foot minimum block wall. And also any new signage structure or signage allotment to walls is to be per a separate Planning Commission document, which would be a public hearing, and that has not yet been submitted. So there are 2 requests associated with implementing a auto dealership here on this property. The first request deals with a major site plan, and actually the request is to develop a multi-tenant dealership within the former Sam's Club building. That building would be refurbished to accommodate 2 dealerships, and then also the development of a new 37,000 square foot 30-foot tall building to the south of Sam's Club. That area currently is an empty pad lot. So with the development of that parcel to the south, there would also be the addition of parking and display area, not only for that area to the south, but there will be some slight reconfiguration of the parking area that currently exists with Sam's Club. I do want to call attention to the fact that the 2 areas to the east are not proposed for development at this time. They're reserved as pad sites, and development in those areas would be subject to a separate major site plan review that would come in front of Planning Commission at a later time. They're refurbishing the Sam's Club building, and this is just to show you the elevations that have been provided of what that would look like. That top picture is the view, the east elevation is seen from the residential area of Mission Royale. The bottom picture is the north elevation is seen from Florence Boulevard. This elevation isn't changing drastically. It would get a new color, but this is the top picture is the view from from Interstate 10, and then the bottom picture is the south elevation as seen from the Arizona well site. The other request that I'm going to be going over this evening is the preliminary re-subdivision plat. The point of that is to reconfigure the existing lots and to create additional lots for future development. So currently the site being developed is comprised of what's known as Parcel 5 and Parcel 8. What will happen is that those parcel boundaries will be slightly readjusted. Parcel 8 gets a little smaller, Parcel 5 gets a little bit larger to an extent. And what will be established with this re-subdivision process is a formal easement for that landscape area to ensure that that area is called out as an area to be landscaped and to be maintained. And it will also reflect reconfirm that 30-foot wide overlapping access and water line easement. There'll be two new lots created, Parcel A and Parcel D, as I've highlighted on the screen here. And those will be for future development. As I mentioned, it would be subject to additional major site plan considerations when those two parcels come in for proposed development. When reviewing major site plans, it's subject to a set of criteria in the city code, and the staff report goes into how all of these criteria are felt to be addressed, but I want to focus on these highlighted items as I feel they're the most important. The first one that I want to talk about is the impact of the plan on existing and anticipated traffic and parking. So Kimley Horn, who is a professional consulting and planning agency, provided a traffic impact statement outlining the anticipated trip generation from these proposed dealerships. What this traffic impact statement did is it compared the number of trips estimated to be generated by the proposed dealerships versus the number of estimated trips that were provided on the previous traffic report when Sam's Club was constructed. When that previous traffic report was provided for the construction of Sam's Club, that informed the amount of improvements that had to be made from a traffic standpoint to be able to accommodate the traffic generated by the Sam's Club use. What that previous study also had done was it had anticipated an additional 167,000 square feet of commercial development to the south, which never happened. That's where the Arizona water well facility is now located. So that previous traffic impact analysis and the improvements that were incorporated as a result of that had called for a total of 10,000 daily trips. 5,600 trips were specifically allocated for Sam's Club. This new traffic statement took into account the proposed dealerships, and it estimates 5,300 trips, so slightly less than Sam's Club, but half that of what the original traffic statement had estimated and what resulted in terms of the improvements that you see out there today. This was reviewed by the City of Casa Grande city traffic engineer and found the data to be acceptable. However, this traffic statement is still being reviewed by the Arizona Department of Transportation. They're a reviewing party on this because of the adjacency to I-10 and State Highway 287. So one of the associated conditions of approval with this major site plan is that any off-site improvements as required by ADOT relating to this development must be made, or otherwise this traffic statement that is under review must otherwise be approved by ADOT prior to certificate of occupancy issuance. The next criteria that I want to talk about is building location, height, and elevations. Now, I already gave you a sneak peek of what the building is to look like at Sam's Club when it gets refurbished. But I just want to walk through a little bit specifically about the building locations. So other than Sam's Club being remodeled, it is not going to be added on to in a way that will bring the building or its massing closer than it already is to the residential area. So it sits just under 500 feet away from the residential area. The proposed building to the south, that's 37,000 square feet in size, will sit about 242 feet away from the residential area. There will be some additional parking and display areas added between the building and the residential area, but there will ultimately be basically a permanent gap of about 41 feet because that's counting the required landscape buffer and the access way and water line easement. As I showed you on a previous slide, they have provided detailed elevations of what the Sam's Club building will look like when it gets refurbished to accommodate the dealers. But for the new building, they only provided a conceptual elevation. This is because the operator hasn't confirmed or signed off on what the style needs to be to meet O&M requirements or OEM requirements. So one of the conditions of approval is that a site plan amendment will be necessary to provide for specific elevations once new elevations are provided so that we get an idea of exactly what that building will look like. The next criteria that I want to talk about is landscaping. So with major site plans, the applicants are required to provide a preliminary landscape plan. And then at the time of site development, an applicant is required to provide a final landscape plan that helps fine-tune and add some additional detail. The preliminary landscape plan identifies two primary large areas where there'll be landscaping provided, identified here on the screen. And of course, internal, where the parking is, there's also landscaping. It basically averages a parking lot island for every 10 spaces. So they're grouped in such a way where there'll be ample shade and canopy screening throughout the parking areas. Within the 25-foot landscape buffer that's adjacent to the residential area of Mission Royale, the preliminary landscape plan actually identifies 40 trees, which meets the typical planting scheme that's recommended in landscape areas, which is one tree for every 30 feet. But as a recommended technical correction, the landscape plan must provide for low littering trees, and also we will assert that they do have to maintain a volume that equals one tree per 30 feet at a minimum, although their plan does provide for that. Landscaping must be installed in this area prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for any of the dealerships. Another recommended technical correction has to deal with the fact that since Sam's Club vacated the site, the landscape area started to become a little bit depleted, and so there's importance on hoping to reconstitute some of that landscaping. And so one of the technical corrections is to update the landscape plan to identify any landscaping that has died or been removed and address this deficiency, showing how any new or replaced plant material will meet city code requirements with regard to landscaping. The next criteria that I want to talk about is lighting. So lighting was one of the major concerns about compatibility with this type of proposed use and the adjacent residential areas. And as I mentioned, one of the development standards that have been approved is that new lighting shall not trespass onto adjacent residential property. New outdoor parking lot and display lighting is to use LED fixtures. And the applicant is to shield or adjust any light that is known to be a glare into residential properties. I want to call attention to the photo provided on the left. The reason why LED is advised or required, and the way that we're able to regulate that first condition about new lighting shall not trespass onto adjacent residential properties is because LED utilizes a type of technology where it's very pointed. You can direct the light onto the object that is being chosen to illuminate. As you see in the photo, whereas the cars are well lit by the lighting, the area that is not intended to be lit, the grass area just off to the left and bottom of the picture, suddenly becomes very dark because you're able to pinpoint with more accuracy what you're wanting to illuminate. Another criteria is that light poles within 75 feet of the residential area are limited to a height of 25 feet. Otherwise, the light pole height's 35, which is, as I mentioned, is the same as the existing light poles at the current vacant Sam's Club. The last review criteria that I want to talk about is loading and unloading areas. And I also combined that with the element of other potentially loud activities, because loading and unloading certainly can be noisy, as could some other activities such as auto repair. So firstly, I want to talk about vehicle deliveries. After-hour deliveries may occur because that is somewhat of a standard operating procedure with auto dealerships. They really can't control when transports arrive with vehicles. However, we're recommending a condition that no transport can park or idle within 300 feet of residential property after hours other than for the unloading of vehicles. But it can't be a situation where they're just pulling off the road in the middle of the night and idling there until a certain unknown amount of time. None of the dealerships are proposing auto body repair. However, each dealership will be providing some level of automotive service, including engine and transmission replacement and overhaul, oil changes, quick service, tire replacement. Such work is required to occur within an enclosed building. In the case of Sam's Club, they are proposing some bays towards the south end of the building to accommodate that, but it will be enclosed within that space. And although we don't know yet where specifically the service bays will be on the new proposed building, because we're still awaiting confirmed elevations, a condition of approval is that this must be placed on the western part of the building, placing it the furthest away from the residential area. With regard to the review of the preliminary replat, again, this is a request to reform parcel 5 and 8 and create 2 pad sites for future development. When looking at re-subdivisions, there are 4 primary items that we look at to ensure that the proposed lots are adequate. And I really want to focus on the highlighted item with regard to utility access and provision and other necessary easements. So within their proposed pre-plat, as I mentioned, they're ultimately creating 4 lots. Parcels C and B are what is to be developed in accordance with this major site plan, but they're also establishing that 25-foot landscape easement with the pre-plat. Parcels A and D are also being proposed to be created. Currently, D is part of B and A is part of C. I know that gets a little bit confusing, but just to show you what the ultimate layout would look like. One of the important things to note is that it's on the final plat, which gets reviewed by City Council, is where we seek actual reference to or the recordation of easements that are necessary to bring this property into fruition. So what will be necessary with that is on the final plat, there'll be the need to demonstrate easements in place for drainage across lots in order for stormwater to reach their intended developed basins. And then the final plat is also to identify easements for cross access and utilities. And then that 25-foot landscape buffer adjacent to the single-family area is to be established as an easement, which ensures for how the plantings within this easement are to be maintained. And the idea is for this area to be maintained by the individual parcel owner in which the easement overlaps within the auto park. With regard to the notification process, there was mailing sent out to owners of property within 300 feet, including the Mission Royale HOA on September 1st, advising that we had an application in for review. And then we followed up with a notice of public hearing on September 22nd. And then a sign was posted by the applicant on the site, also on September 22nd. And then a notice in the newspaper occurred on September 21st. As a result of these notification efforts, I did receive 2 comments over the phone from 2 residents within Mission Royale. The first resident had expressed concerns about the noise from the unloading of vehicles and idling trucks after hours. And as a result of that conversation is what sort of created the need to recommend the condition that I spoke about a few slides back, which is with regard to unloading of vehicles after hours, insofar as other than this unloading, no transport can park or idle within 300 feet of the residential property after hours. That same resident had expressed concerns about the noise created during the construction activity and also the dust and how that would be mitigated. So with regard to that concern, during the building permit and development plan permit process, there are certain code requirements to help ensure that dust is controlled. They have to wet the area down, et cetera. And the city code does have has a particular noise ordinance, but it does allow construction activity within a certain block of time. And it actually is different in the summer versus winter because of the heat consideration. The second couple that I heard from had expressed concerns about noise, light, building height, and development in general next to residential property. Staff does recommend that Planning Commission approve the major site plan for the Casa Grande Auto Park, subject to technical corrections and conditions that are in your staff report and what I have reiterated this evening. There's 8 technical corrections that involve making modifications to the site plan prior to final approval. And then there's a list of conditions that don't necessarily require changes to the site plan, but it would obligate the owners within that site plan to be beholden to with regard to certain development restrictions. Staff also recommends that Planning Commission approve the preliminary re-subdivision plat, subject to one technical correction, and it's changing some wording on that document. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commission, any more questions? I have one, James. I'm just kind of confused about the 300-foot after hours. So it is okay to park within 300 feet. So you can park 50 feet away from the wall after hours and unload?
Technically correct. As long as they're unloading, they can park where they need to park to unload. Okay. Likely, if you look at the, I'll go up a couple slides to show you sort of the layout of the site plan. There may be some unloading activities as close as 41 feet away. Yeah. But the intent of the condition is for vehicles not to just sit there and idle while not participating in that unloading process.
Okay. Because I know we see cars unloading in the middle of streets around here all over the place. They just park in the middle of a road and unload. And I'm concerned with being that close to unload. I didn't understand why it's the 300 feet, they can park within that. It seemed like they should have to park outside the 300 feet from the houses to unload, because they definitely have, the land. They can unload much further away than that. The first building they can, or parcel C is way off that, but parcel B is going to be pretty close.
And I can have the applicant address that. I'm not sure exactly where the unloading activities have to take place. If they're putting the cars on a display area that happens to be closer than 300 feet, then that's where the unloading would have to, of course, occur, which would be more of a concern on parcel B. Parcel C does, adequately meet that distance more or less, but there's that access drive that runs just to the west of parcel D. The reason for the 300 feet was just to come up with a reasonable distance that you could create some separation to prevent the idling of vehicles just for the sake of them sitting there waiting for something to happen, to try to prevent that noise as much as possible.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions?
No, just a comment. Jim, appreciate all the detail that you explained to us. It appears that parcel D is probably going to be providing a buffer zone in itself if that's not currently being developed at this point, correct?
Chairman Peters, you're correct that because there's no proposed development at this time, it does sort of provide as a buffer. However, it is a developable lot, so at the time a use is proposed for parcel D, we would have to look at its impacts on the adjacent property.
Right.
Other questions? Would the applicant or his representative like to step up and give us your presentation? Give us your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Cecil Yates. I'm the Executive Vice President of Mullen 360.
Go ahead.
Pleasure
Whatever-
to be
whatever
here.
you have to
I
add
thought you
to
had
it
a
would be
question.
great.
I apologize, Vice Chairman. Pleasure to be here. We're excited. It's a neat adaptive reuse of a vacant building. It's been wonderful working with staff and yourselves. As you know, we've already received zoning approval. It's been great working with James and his staff. They've been very accommodating, and we've worked through some issues to accommodate all the needs of the residents and the commercial district. One thing I did want to bring up, and the unloading with regard to the southern building there, I believe it's parcel B, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, for parcel B. I think originally we were talking, the western exposure, of course, in the summertime, it's extremely hot. I think that building, we were supposed to include a southern, the ability to unload cars on the south of that building, which would still be as far away as possible from the residential areas.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Questions for him?
Parcel D that they're talking about, that's in the plan. You own that property, correct?
Yeah, that will be part of the overall plan.
Do you plan to put another car dealership there?
It's open for development. At this point, we're using it similar to what was stated about a buffer, probably overflow parking at this point.
Anyone else? No. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Now,
Hey,
would,
Cecil, can I call you back up there real quick? Just a point of clarification on something you said about the activity on parcel B. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of our recommendation that any sort of auto service would be towards the western part of the building.
Service is fine. Yeah,
yeah.
I could have sworn you mentioned
Yeah,
about
I did.
delivering.
But in your discussion with the Planning Commission just now, you had talked about the sun and activities on the south, so I didn't know if you also intended that to mean that that's where service activity
No, I
was.
apologize. It was
Okay.
just in the case of delivery
Okay,
on that southern building.
got it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone from the public like to make a comment? Go ahead and step up, sir, to the microphone. Go ahead and step up to the microphone if you would, please. And if you could give us your name and address, please.
Yeah, David Clark, South Fork Ranch, Casa Grande.
I'm sorry.
David Clark, South Fork Ranch, Casa Grande.
Okay.
The only thing I noticed that there was no option for any kind of charging stations in the facility. There used to be a gas station there, and I just wondered if that had been thought about for cars.
I will ask the question of them. Is there anything else you'd like to
No,
present
that's
to
all.
us?
I just thought it would be a good idea to have some kind of facility for charging
Okay,
electric
thank-
cars. Okay.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else have any comments? Seeing none, I'd like to ask the applicant a quick question that the gentleman just raised. Is there going to be charging stations?
Yes, there will be plenty. As we all know, every manufacturer is planning electric cars in both the short term and near term. I will like to point out that right behind Culver's right now, I believe there's a dozen charging stations, but every OEM is going towards a line of automobiles that will be electric. So yes, there will be plenty of electric charging stations at this facility.
Will those be public charging stations, or will those be just for your vehicles?
I'm not the dealer, I'm the
Okay.
developer, but,
Okay.
so I don't have that answer for you, but I'm sure if you buy a car from Ford, they'll be
You'll
more than
let you
happy
charge
to
it there,
bring you.
I'm sure they would. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there any more comments? None, I'll bring it back to the commission then. Any comments, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve DSA-21-0018, major site plan to repurpose the former Sam's Club building as surrounding property with the recommendations of the staff.
Okay, and
Second.
that's including the technical, yes, okay. All right, could I please get a vote, a roll call vote, please?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Yes.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McBride.
Yes. That part passed, sir.
Again, okay.
Let's go for the
And
second.
then the second one is I make a motion to approve DSA-21-00023 preliminary subdivision plat to reconfigure the former Sam's Club lot and its listing lot between Sam's Club and Arizona Water Well with the recommendations of the staff
And including the technical corrections,
and the technical corrections.
okay.
Okay.
Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Aye.
Member Estrada, Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McBride.
Yes. Congratulations, sir. You can join us for the rest of the fun-filled activities if you want, or you're free to go.
Normally we're last, so we appreciate it.
You just got on it early. Okay, the next would be public hearing and consideration to forward a recommendation of approval to City Council for the request by EPS Group Incorporated, DSA 21-0156, presented by, I'll get to it. I remember looking for them. James again.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. So this is a request to change the zoning of the Sonoran Heights PAD to R2. A little bit of background and context, the Sonoran Heights PAD is about just shy of 260 acres that sits south of Florence, north of Early Road, between Caceres Court and Hennis Road. And currently, it's a planned area development zone that is entitled for multiple land uses, but primarily single-family residential. As you see here on their existing land use map, the PAD entitles the area to have 750 single-family home sites at a density of about 3.1 dwelling units per acre. Up towards the northwest portion of the PAD is a high-density residential designated area to allow 365 units of multifamily product. There's a commercial area closer to Florence Boulevard and then a school site. The property has certificates of assured water supply for 750 homes. And due to recently passed legislation, these certificates of assured water supply, or otherwise known as CAS, can be increased if it's determined that the increase does not result in the use of any more acre feet of groundwater that was determined to be needed for the original CAS allocation. The developer has indicated that they can increase their CAS to 995 single-family lots, and that is what is prompting this zone change request. As a planned area development zone, it's a challenge to accommodate 995 units due to the restrictive nature of the PAD residential design standards that would apply to this property. Some of those PAD residential design standards require a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet, minimum lot width of 55 feet. The side setbacks require one side to be 5 feet while the other side has to be a minimum of 10. And then there's a requirement for a balance of lots, which is for every lot less than 7,000 square feet, an equal number of lots, 8,000 square feet and over have to be provided. The proposal is to rezone 229 acres of the PAD to R2. It would leave out a portion of the northwest to preserve the multifamily entitlement, but under the R2 zoning, the development standards are a little bit less restrictive. The minimum lot size is 5,000 square feet. The minimum lot width is 45 feet. Minimum side setbacks are 5 and 5 instead of 5 and 10. And their proposed density, instead of being 3.1 as currently approved for, it would be bumped up to 4.3 dwelling units per acre. A preliminary plat has been submitted alongside this rezone submittal. That is still under review. However, they are showing how those 995 lots are laid out. And as part of the platting process, the developer has to provide documentation from Arizona Department of Water Resources to confirm the allowance of 995 lots on the final plat. Here's an excerpt of that proposed layout and how it fits within the proposed R2 zoning area. And as I mentioned, they are leaving out a portion on the northwest of the site. They're proposing a remnant of 27.25 acres. 20.3 of those acres are currently entitled for multifamily or high-density residential. You could get about 365 units out of that. However, there's 7 acres that are a remnant of the single-family PAD area. So basically, this area will be subject to a rezone upon development should it differ from how it's currently entitled. This is just to show you a side-by-side comparison of the PAD standards compared to the R2 standards. I've talked about these already, but one of the ways that we are trying to bolster some of the compatibility and some of the benefits of a PAD zone is by recommending a couple of conditions of record with this R2 zoning. And that's the following. We would require that housing product be submitted just like it is required with a PAD zone. That would ensure for design review that would come in front of Planning Commission to ensure a quality assortment and mixture of housing types. And then they would also be subject to the subdivision standards found within the PAD, which would require a minimum open space of 15%. There would be a requirement for front yard landscaping and residential fence returns, just like in PAD zones, and the same requirements for perimeter walls, streetscape, and entrances. Another condition of record that we are recommending is that this is to have an HOA or special maintenance district, just as a PAD would normally, just to ensure maintenance and quality development throughout time. In an R2 zone, it is actually technically considered a multifamily residential zone district, but it does allow single-family home development. But in addition to single-family homes, it does allow multifamily development, assuming the parcel meets certain lot size and lot width requirements. But it allows both attached product and detached product, in that you could technically have multiple single-family homes on a lot. But a condition of record, however, that we're recommending is that multifamily development and multiple single-family structures on individual lots are not allowed, so that this does develop as intended as a single-family residential neighborhood. There's a number of conditional uses that are allowed in the R2 zone that would be subject to Planning Commission consideration of a conditional use permit, such as schools, churches, and group homes. When considering zone changes, there's criteria that must be addressed, and the staff report talks about these three in fairly great detail. They pertain to compliance with the general plan, by and large. And I just want to walk through with you how the general plan affects zone change decisions and what we look at. So this area lies within the neighborhoods land use designation. And within the general plan, neighborhoods is an area that allows single-family developments with homes on individual lots having a maximum gross density of 4.5 dwelling units per acre. So the general plan allows for this. Currently, as I mentioned, the allowed density is 3.1. What would be proposed would be 4.3. So it falls within the parameters of the maximum density allowed. And then as a side note, you can have medium density residential developments on sites with 25 acres or less, with a density of 10 dwelling units per acre. Sites of 20 acres or less can have a maximum density of 20 dwelling units per acre. The reason why I point that out is that might be of benefit when they go to develop the part of the area that is not being proposed for the zone change, the area that's designated for multifamily. R2 is included as an appropriate zone district within the neighborhood's general plan land use category. As far as this zone change being consistent with goals and action steps, there is a goal found within the general plan that talks about encouraging a variety of neighborhood design and development standards. Our recommended condition to ensure there be housing product helps ensure that that goal is met, so that there is a variety in housing design. But then also offering a slightly altered development pattern with the smaller lots would help contribute to that variety. One of the action steps to ensure that goal is to offer a variety of housing choices for all income levels, generation, and household demographics. The home building community is telling us that having the smaller lot is more ideal because it does help with first-time buyers looking for a slightly smaller lot in order to be able to accommodate a home. Another action step is increasing the amount of medium density housing. And actually what's being proposed with this rezone is not medium density. It's still considered low density since it falls below 4.5 dwelling units per acre. But because it is an increase in density from what is currently approved, I feel this action step does sort of speak to what's being requested, in that there is a action step in place in the general plan to increase density. And an applicable element that I want to speak to found in the general plan is it does call for the increasing of the range of housing choices and products available to all members of the CG community. This zone change is felt to help address that because it will provide an increase in the number of lots. Regarding the notification process, this met all that is required within the city code. There were actually 2 signs posted on the site just because of the large size of the area to be rezoned. There were no comments provided as a result of the public notification efforts. And just a quick overview of the next steps involved. City Council would hear this zone change request at its November 1st meeting, the first reading of the ordinance. And then Planning Commission would hear the preliminary plat for this area at an upcoming scheduled meeting. Council would be required to consider the final plat, where I mentioned there would have to be some sort of ADWR certification that the number of lots requested are allowed. And then, assuming that gets approved, their next steps would be administrative. They would submit for site development permit plans, final landscaping, public improvement permits to improve roadways leading or adjacent to the development, as well as the provision of financial assurance. And then, of course, we're recommending housing product, which would have to be submitted to Planning Commission for consideration. So staff does recommend that Planning Commission forward to council a recommendation to approve this zone change for a portion of Sonoran Heights PAD to R2, subject to the conditions that I discussed in the staff report and on this presentation. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, my question is, I guess, a process question. Explain to me, help me understand putting in all the work without having seen the Department of Water Resources approval for the increase in the size. I mean, we all could have done all this work, and if it doesn't show up, then we can't do it. And so I just wondered why the process was do all the work and then see it.
Chairman
and
Bennett.
not see it.
Right. Well, and Chairman Benedict, I hope that it's successful, because this 20 minutes of me talking would be all for naught.
And all the work you put into it
Right.
before, buddy. That's
Right. Paul can help field that question.
So Commissioner Benedict, the answer is that we don't control that sequencing of the process, right? It's the applicant's choice to take this step in their planning entitlements. We will not approve a final plat until they have proof that ADWR has approved the increase in the number of lots. There is a process the ADWR has to go through that. I'm going to tell you that, that new rule just took effect at the end of September with ADWR, so they're probably just creating that process internally to tell applicants how to apply and what information they need to prove that there's no increase in water usage. The applicant's engineer is here this evening. He might be able to address it further, but hopefully that explains why they're moving forward now and, prior to having the ADWR approval.
And I do want to add that in the scenario that they weren't successful with receiving an increase in the number of lots, R2 still does accommodate single-family residential development, and they could develop the site as what was shown on the PAD to a great degree, although they are eliminating a commercial area. That area could serve as open space or whatnot. And even though they have, the R2 allows for certain minimum lot sizes that are less restrictive than a PAD, they're not obligated to build a 5,000 square foot lot. They could create larger lots under the R2 zoning. But it was important to impose that condition preventing multifamily development in that large expansive area. So in a scenario where they don't get the increase, they would be basically restricted to single-family development as what's currently allowed for them in the PAD.
Well, I appreciate as usual, the staff is working hard to help our development, community, and I appreciate that part too. It just was kind of funny to me to have that, and I just wanted to understand what was going on with that. So.
Commissioner Dugan.
Got a couple questions. This is just a zoning change, so there's a lot of houses going on this property. You're not showing any road improvements or anything. I guess we get into that later where there'll be some four-lane highways, I would assume, because all the traffic right now would coming off of going into Florence Boulevard, so there's a lot of homes. So I assume that's going to come at a later date to us for improvement of four-lane highways and so forth. Would that be correct?
Yes, Chairman Dugan. So at the plating process, what will happen is they have to do right-of-way dedication for the half street for Hennis, the half street for Caceres, and also Early. Of course, Early is already existing to some extent, but they would have to make improvements adjacent to their area and additional right-of-way dedication, as well as Caceres and Hennis. And the property does reach up to Florence, but they'll ultimately have several points of access.
Okay, that comes later. And the last question I have for you is, we have a huge residential area here. I see in some of the drawings here, they got room for possibility of a school. One thing I really didn't notice, a large area like this, there's no room for parks otherwise than some open areas for retention areas. Is there an R2, is there allotment that you would have to put so many feet for actual parks for the people to go to? And right now, you're not showing any of that.
So Chairman Dugan, that's a great question because when you're looking at that excerpt that I showed up on the screen, it is hard to identify all the open space areas. One of the conditions of record is they do provide a minimum open space of 15%, which is greater than what typically R2 would allow. That's aligned with a PAD open space requirement. When we go further into the review of the preliminary plat and when we present that to Planning Commission for consideration, that is an excellent observation to take note of to ensure that they are meeting that minimum. But I also think when that document goes in front of you, I can help emphasize and highlight where those open space areas are and how they're meeting that 15%.
Thank you.
Anyone else, questions? Would the applicant or the representative like to step up? Give us your name and address, please.
My name is Dale Willis with Willis Property Company, 3850 East Baseline Road, Mesa, Arizona. I'd like to thank the commission for taking a moment and listening to James. It's been a great honor to work with him on this particular project like we have with some others that we are in process with down here. And so tonight, I'm here to answer any questions that you might have with regards to the zoning change. We were involved early on years ago when we put the PAD in place when it was approved, but now we're asking for this zoning change. So if there's any questions, I'm here to answer those for you.
Thank you very much for your
Okay.
time, sir.
Thank you.
Would anyone from the public like to make any comments on this subject? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make another motion that we approve DSA-21-00156, that we make a favorable recommendation forward to the city council to zone it, this property to an R2, and with the staff recommendations.
Second.
Okay. Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Okay. Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Aye.
Member Estrada, Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McBride.
Yes. Thank you very much, sir. Good luck on the next step with it. And if everyone would like to indulge me for just about a 5-minute break, step aside.
Thing.
I'd like to resume the meeting. I'd like to call the next one, which would be, let me get over to it.
DSA.
Yeah, public hearing consideration for approval of request by iPlan, I believe the consulting, on behalf of the Century Communities for the following land use approvals, lots within the Tuscany subdivision, DSA 21-00173, and all along with it is DSA 21-00192. And let me get to it. And this is for Kylie.
Good evening, Vice Chairman and McBride and members of the commission. Next item on the agenda that I have is for Tuscany Housing Product Review, DSA 21-00173, and the conditional use permit for a model home complex, DSA 21-00192. The first request is for a housing product review with 189 lots, consists of 8 plans, each with 3 elevations that range in size from 1,789 square feet to 2,621 square feet. And the second request is for a conditional use permit for a temporary model home complex on lots 1 through 4 shown on this map. Some background, the site is zoned R1, however, part of the conditions of approval stipulated the development would comply with the 2003 residential design standards for open space, architectural requirements, and front yard landscaping. In 2006, the subdivision was approved. However, site development infrastructure for the subdivision was not accepted by the city, and due to years of inactivity, the site is now in the process of being updated. And the Century Communities housing project includes 8 floor plans, 5 single-story and 3 two-story, 3 elevations, which consist of Spanish, Craftsman, and Modern Prairie, 19 color schemes, and front yard landscaping packages are provided. And here are 2 of the 19 color schemes, for example. And then here are some of the front yard landscaping packages provided as well. There are 5 housing product review criteria, including floor plans, elevations, roofs, garages, patio covers, and additions and modifications. Regarding the floor plans and elevations listed here, the submittal has met all the requirements. Roofs and garages criteria have also been met, and here are some of the examples of the roofing tile, as well as the garage elevations to the right. And patio covers have also been met in the review criteria. In addition to the requirements for PAD residential architecture, there are 8 additional requirements, of which 4 must be met. And listed here are the following: the 4 Century Communities has met and provided with us, and the staff report goes into additional detail. Now I would like to introduce the conditional use permit for temporary model home complex on lots 1 through 4 shown on this map. Lots 2 and 3 will contain the model homes as shown on the bottom of this slide. As part of the conditional use permit review criteria, staff finds all 5 of these criteria listed have been met, and additional details are also provided in the staff report. And as part of the public hearing notification efforts, mailing was sent to surrounding property owners, as well as a notice published in the Casa Grande Dispatch 15 days before the Planning Commission hearing. And at this time, there are no inquiries or comments provided. So staff recommends the Planning Zoning Commission approve the housing product DSA 21-00173 for the Century Communities upon 189 lots within the Tuscany subdivision, which are outlined in the staff report as well. And then lastly, the staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit DSA 00192 for the Century Communities Model Home Complex and associated resolutions subject to the following specific conditions which are outlined as well in the staff report. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? You did such a fine job, no one's questioning you.
Thanks.
Would the representative like to step forward? State your name and address, please.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. Mario Mangiamelli, iPlan Consulting. Address is 3317 South Higley Road, Suite 114-622, and that's Gilbert, Arizona, 85297. Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. Again, I am representing Century Communities of Arizona. And although Century Communities is a relatively new builder to the Arizona market, they've been in the home building business for at least 19 years. I know they're currently building in at least 17 different states. In fact, this is our second subdivision within Casa Grande. First, and we were before you here a few months ago for the Casa Vista subdivision, in which Century Communities had purchased a number of lots there. But in this case, Century Communities has purchased the entire 189 lots for the Tuscany subdivision. In fact, I believe they are already moving forward with expending significant capital in making a lot of the improvements to, I believe, what is, and I hate to use this cliche, but probably one of the last zombie subdivisions, if you will, from the 2006-2007 era. I believe this is probably one of the last in Casa Grande, but they are already moving forward and repairing walls, repairing landscaping, installing new landscaping, repairing some of the open space amenities that are just because they've sat derelict for so many years. Since staff has given such a thorough overview, I'm just going to say is that we are in agreement with staff's recommended stipulations for both the housing product for Tuscany as well as the conditional use permit for the model home complex. And as such, we just respectfully request your approval here tonight. Thank you.
Any questions?
Just a point of interest question, do you have any idea of how many of the models that you're gonna do the RV, they show an RV home on in the model homes, and I just wondered how many you got any idea how many of those you're gonna put up
That is
at this point?
That is correct. At this point, I believe all the attached RV garages, those are optional features. Century Communities is modeling one of those with their one of their homes now to try to help sell that option, but it's really hard to tell. I don't know what their sales records show as far as the percentage of sales for those RV garages.
Sure, yeah.
But I believe it is offered on a good portion of the homes that are going to be offered for sale at Tuscany.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I just have a point of curiosity before you walk away. Has no bearing on if you pass this or not. Is the infrastructure still sound there, or is it going to have to be dug up and redone? Or do you have any idea?
I really don't have any idea. I believe that is one of the things that Century Communities is currently investigating right now. They're looking at all the wet utilities, the water, the sewer lines to make sure that everything is sound. Those will have to be re-inspected, I believe, by the city before those are accepted by the city. And we start issuing, or the city starts issuing certificate of occupancies for finals on the homes in the future. So again, they're looking at all aspects of the subdivision right now to make sure everything meets public safety standards and needs.
And thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you.
Would anyone from the public like to make any comments on this subject? Step up, sir. Repeat your name and address, please, again.
David Clark, South Pole Branch in Casa Grande. Obviously, we live right across the road from where this is going on right now, and there are some concerns amongst the residents about noise, dust, and mainly the traffic situation there, since there's going to be a lot more, obviously, people around. There's already trouble trying to cross streets around there. So I wondered if anybody had considered that as yet.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your concerns.
Yeah.
Would anybody else have any questions? Would you have any idea of traffic impact? Studies aren't done at this time, are they?
No.
We could ask our traffic engineer to see if he has any
He wants to say
opinion or
something.
concerns about the traffic and pedestrian safety in this area?
Driveways, onto the main roads are already there. I guess I don't have any serious concerns at this time. There's some half-street issues adjacent to this that will be built in other development, but
I was trying to recall whether or not the full street improvements to Peart are in place here. I thought they probably were.
Here's
And-
4-lane right now.
Yeah, and the public sidewalk, I believe, is built on both sides of
Yes.
Peart as well.
Yes, it is. A lot of homeless live across the street from it right now. And if there's no other questions, I'd like to bring it back to the commission. Any comments, questions?
No?
Somebody else want to make a motion?
Somebody like to make a motion,
Yeah,
please?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve DSA-21-00173, the housing project for the design review of the floor plans and with the recommendation of the staff,
Okay, with all the conditions, right?
with all the conditions, yes.
A second.
Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Member Peters,
Aye?
Member Benedict,
Yes.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McBride.
Yes.
And I'll go ahead and make the second one for DSA-21-00192 for a conditional use permit to allow a temporary mobile home complex with the recommendations of the staff.
And model,
Model homes.
Second.
no mobile homes in there.
Did I say mobile homes? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Do I hear a second?
Second, yeah.
Oh, you second.
We're good, brother. I got you.
Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Aye.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McBride.
Yes. Congratulations, sir, on this step. You're moving forward to the next one, sir. And the next one up is DSA 21-00160, conditional use permit for a automobile washing establishment, along with DSA 21-00161, major site plan, and DSA 21-00169, a preliminary plat to subdivide. And that will be Jocelyn?
Jacqueline.
Sorry.
Good evening, Vice Chair McBride, members of the commission. Next item on the agenda is for the Superstar Car Wash located at 1610 East Florence Boulevard. And this includes the conditional use permit, major site plan, as well as a preliminary plat request. Little overview on the site. The preliminary plat will subdivide the site into 4 lots. The current site is approximately 4.68 acres. The conditional use permit is to allow a car wash within the B2 zoning district. And the major site plan is to allow the placement of a 4,593 square foot car washing establishment on a little over an acre. This will also include 3 queuing lanes that will funnel into an automatic bay and include 36 stations for vacuums. The site plan and elevations will go into more detail on later slides. So regarding the conditional use permit, these are the 5 criteria staff reviews. Staff has found that it meets all of the requirements, and I will cover a couple of these in my presentation. First one being the site for the proposed use is adequate in size, topography, and to accommodate all areas. Staff found that it has met this, and it is also including a screen wall, abutting Florence that will hide the traffic and vacuum stalls for the site. The building also includes four-sided architecture using a combination of different materials and colors. Again, that will be shown on upcoming slides. Regarding traffic, the traffic statement was reviewed and approved by our traffic engineer with conditions that the access would be a right-in, right-out on Florence and including a right turn lane for westbound traffic on Florence. This is shown right here on the site plan. Another part of the CUP requirement is a 50-foot setback from a residential zoning district. The building is currently set for 55 feet. The property to the north is actually zoned urban ranch. However, it is unlikely to be developed as a residential area. This is typically a placeholder for zoning, and within the community corridor, urban ranch is not a compatible zoning district, so it will likely be developed as commercial in the future. Going over the major site plan criteria, here are the criteria staff reviews. Many of this was covered in the CUP criteria. I did want to point out that the site does show pedestrian access to the site from Florence, and this conforms with our development standards associated with community corridor, land use category in the general plan. And again, the staff report goes into more detail. Here are some elevations showing the site from the west and east, as well as some other from the north as well. Going on to the preliminary plat, review for adequacy. These are the item staff reviews. I did want to point out that the preliminary plat creates 4 lots. This does not require a certificate of assured water supply because 5 lots is the threshold. The 4 lots meet the minimum lot width of 150 feet for the B2 zoning district. And I also wanted to point out that the development will have cross-access with only the one right-in, right-out on this area, in this area. Regarding public notification, the site was posted. Notice was published in the dispatch as well as mailed to property owners within 300 feet, and no inquiries or comments were received by staff. So next steps, upon Planning and Zoning Commission approval of the preliminary plat, City Council will consider the final plat at a later date, and the site development and building permit review process as well, which would be done administratively. So staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit and associated conditional use resolution for DSA 21-00160 for an automobile washing establishment within the B2 zoning district with the following specific condition outlined in the staff report, as well as the major site plan and preliminary plat. That I'll be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Questions?
I have one. Is this the same company we approved the one on, by Safeway's?
Yes.
It's the same company?
Yes.
Okay. So now we got 4 new car washes.
We have dirty cars here.
Yeah.
We will have.
Not anymore.
We'll have the cleanest cars. in the
Competition
state.
is wonderful.
I go 3 times a week now. That's all I can say.
Okay, thank you. That's all I need to know.
And I saw on the map, it showed 2 entrances off the roadway. Is that just future?
Yeah,
Because there's a
future,
second
that will
one
be
to
future.
the west.
It would actually be kind of associated with the existing parcel, the AutoZone to the west.
So will it link up to AutoZone?
Yes. And then it will also link up to the property to the west, east. That is the
Cold Stone
previous
Creamery.
Cold Stone, which
Yeah.
is going to be a new ice cream shop as well.
So is that an empty lot that's right next to it, or is that AutoZone that's right next to it?
AutoZone is right next to Lot 1 right here.
Okay.
And then the development to the
I can't
east.
see where you're pointing. It's too.
Sorry. I can't, there's no pointy thing.
So, Mr. Chair, what we're trying to do here is really encourage cross-access
Yeah.
across properties. So you can see there will be one new right-in, right-out constructed in the middle of these 4 lots, and there will be a drive lane that crosses off 4 lots eventually, sharing access among those 4. But also, as you can see, there's an existing right-in on the western boundary, right at AutoZone, which they also can share, and then the entrance, the connectivity to the existing shopping center to the east that allows for cross-access through there. This kind of cross-access is critical to allow us to implement more strict access control in our Florence Boulevard corridor. So you'll be, you'll be seeing staff pushing and recommending for more of this kind of design for our new developments.
So at this time, the 3 lots, the 2 on one side and the 1 on the other side are going to be vacant until something happens.
Correct, yes, I forgot to mention that. Yeah,
Yes.
Lot 2 is just being developed, and then at a future time, when those sites are developed, they will come in for major site plans as well.
Okay, thank you.
Further on that, do we know if they have cross-lot access to the lots to the east and the west? Agreements to the east and the west right currently?
That will be part of the final plat approval.
Yeah. Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you very much. Would the representative like to step forward? Tell us about your new car wash.
Okay, great. Hi, my name's Jason Doty. I'm with Colley Architects at 730 North 52nd Street in Phoenix. And I'm here today to discuss another superstar car wash. As you guys mentioned, we are hoping to build 4 of them in your wonderful city. Is there any specific questions I can answer?
You said you're going to build 4 of them here?
We hope so.
Okay.
Yeah, we've
I'm not against it, I just was.
We have met with you guys so far on 4 of them, so you guys, one of them, I believe, is already approved and in the building department, and this is the next one that's up. We've had preliminary meetings on the other 2 as well.
Good deal. We're looking forward to it.
This one is
Like I
second
said, we
in
have
line.
dirty cars around here and pickup trucks, lots of dirty pickup trucks.
Well, we think that the developer, Superstar Car Wash believes there's a huge need for it here, so. Anyways, Jacqueline did a great presentation, so what more can I answer for you?
Questions?
When are you gonna start building the one on Safeway that we approved?
As soon as we get the building permit.
Okay.
It's in the building permit stage right now, so.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, great.
Does anyone in the audience have any comment on this subject? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission.
You gonna do them all, Dennis?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I move to approve DSA-21000160 for a conditional use permit to allow automobile washing established with a B2 zoning with the recommendations of the staff.
Second.
Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Yes.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McBride,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve DSA-21-00161 for a major site plan to allow the placement of a 4,593 square foot automatic car wash with 36 vacuum stalls upon a 1 acre site with approval from the staff recommendations.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Could I get a roll call vote again, please?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Aye.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McBride,
Yes.
And the last one is I make a motion to approve DSA-21000169 preliminary plot to subdivide it into 4 lots on approximately 4.6 acres with recommendations from the staff.
Second.
Could I get one more roll call vote on this?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Yes.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McBride.
Yes. Congratulations on the car wash. Hope to see them all soon. We'll start having price wars with car washes around here, I'm sure. That's gonna be the next step. Thank you, though. And I'd like to call our final one, the final one I'm going to ever be at. This will be for DSA 21-0038, conditional use permit, DSA 21-0039, a major site plan, and DSA 21-00040. Ms. Sarnowski.
Good evening again. Next item on the agenda is for the Kentucky Fried Chicken located at 1618 Florence Boulevard. Again, for a conditional use permit, major site plan, and preliminary replat request. Little overview of the site. The site will be a preliminary replat to combine lots 2 through 9 of the Evergreen addition to Casa Grande subdivision located Florence and Brown to one lot. The conditional use permit is to allow a quick serve drive-through restaurant within the B2 zoning district, and a major site plan to allow a placement of 2,360 square feet building with new parking. I will also like to note that the applicant also received a right-of-way abandonment that was approved by the City Council on September 20th for 25 feet of right-of-way along Florence, as well as 10 feet of right-of-way along Brown Avenue. Going in again to the conditional use permits, here are the 5 criteria staff reviews. Staff found that the request met all these, and I will be going over a few ones as well. So the site includes a screen wall that will be along Florence and Brown Avenue, and including additional landscaping. I will note that with right-of-way abandonment, there is still some area that is within the city's right-of-way. However, with the redevelopment, there's no more parking in this area, and it will only be for landscaping and the existing signage that I will discuss on a later slide. Again, this is a redevelopment that will be reutilizing the current driveways. The drive-through queuing provides adequate stacking that will not impact Brown Avenue. And again, per the CUP requirements, the building setback requirement is 50 feet from a residential zoning district. To the north, the property is zoned R2 and meets this requirement. The applicant has also added a 6-foot CMU wall screening along the drive-through area for additional screening. Again, here is the major site plan criteria that staff reviews. Again, staff found that it has met all the requirements and has been provided in the staff report. Here are some of the elevations that were provided. And looking at the preliminary plat, the B2 zoning requires a minimum corner lot of 200 feet. With the right-of-way abandonment, the corner lot now is 210 feet. It meets the drainage where there are existing dry wells that will continue to capture all the developed flows from the site. And as part of the right-of-way abandonment, applicable easements owners had to sign off on that as well. So that will be also included in the final plat. Regarding notification, the site was posted. A notice in the dispatch was published, as well as notices were mailed out to property owners within 300 feet. I did receive a comment from the property owner to the north of the apartments prior to the mailings, and I reached out to the applicant, and that is when they added the 6-foot CMU wall to screen the drive-through. I actually did speak to the owner this morning, and he was happy with that addition, and I didn't receive any other additional comments. So next steps, upon Planning and Zoning Commission approval of the preliminary plat, the City Council will consider the final plat at a later date. Applicant will need to also apply for a right-of-way encroachment permit for the existing signage. And in discussion with the applicant, we have noted that the signage is will meet the designation for landmark signage for the Historic Preservation Commission. So we ask that they consider doing that. as well as doing the site development and building permit review. So with that, if it is designated as a historic landmark sign, they would be allowed additional signage because with that designation, it would not account towards their allotted sign requirements. So I did updated our resolution for this in your handout that was provided today, that also included any additional signage should be a maximum height of 15 feet and shall be monument in style as well. So with that, staff recommends Planning Commission approval of the conditional use permit and associated conditional use resolution for DSA 210038, including the updated condition, as well as the major site plan and preliminary replat. Be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Questions? I've been approached by people about the sign a couple of times. And one of the questions, and I wasn't sure, and you probably know who it was is there any ordinance that says signs can't rotate? I know in some cities they stop that type of thing. And they were concerned with if this sign would ever rotate again, the barrel.
No, there is no ordinance stopping that, and it's actually looking into getting a fix to rotate again.
Okay.
Love it.
The public spoke to me about it. They were real concerned about that rotating sign. Is there any other questions? Yeah.
They don't like a rotating sign?
No, they were very much in favor of having the sign rotate.
Hoping it
Oh, man, me
Wanted
too.
to make it happen again. and
Oh, man, me too.
Bring back the olden days.
Get my can of oil and go help them get that.
If there's no other questions, I'd like to have the applicant step forward, please.
That's who to ask.
Good evening, John Gertis with Texas Land Engineers, Houston, Texas.
Is there anything you'd like to add about the sign?
So the sign is pretty awesome, quite frankly. Yes, we're going to try to get it to rotate, clean it up, and make it a little pretty. I wanted to add strobe lights and neon to it, but I was told that would probably not go over well. So I think we're just going to get it to spin again and clean it up and just leave it where it's at.
Okay. Will it stay in the same location?
Absolutely.
I believe this is the second, or this will be the third building there, correct?
So-
It was rebuilt one time before.
If it was way before my time. I was told to look at that building, and originally, we thought we had more land to work with than what we did, and we were going to try to break it up into 2 tracks, but with some of the right-of-way taking and the new landscaping requirements, we can only get 1 building on there. So the goal, and y'all, we aren't to that stage yet for turning the plans in, but is actually to build the building, get it up and operational before we tear down the other building, because he would like to keep the building operational right now. And he's got a huge demand for it, and everyone we've talked to as well is like, don't take it away. So it's like, no, we're going to phase it so we can hopefully only take it down for maybe a week or 2.
Nice.
Got a couple questions for you.
Yes, sir.
I go through Kentucky Fried Chicken once in a while, And anyway, this building looks like it's a bit smaller than the original building. Is that the trend?
That is the trend. What we're finding is very few people are going in anymore. The DoorDash and all that has changed things completely. Everything's through a drive-through, and then sometimes we even find ourselves having to designate spaces for DoorDash and like Grubhub and those type of things. But like I said, this space got really small on us pretty quick.
Okay, and the existing building has a big building, little shed outside that you keep freezers in for your cakes and so forth or your guests. Are you going to eliminate that?
Yes.
Okay. In a smaller space in the new building?
Smaller space, that means there's going to be more rotation of trucks to get the freezer stuff in there and all that fun stuff. And we're trying to make it as big and as efficient we can, but the site's just really hard, and the building is not something we can salvage.
Got it. Okay.
Anyone else? Speak
Well,
about chicken?
with all of the challenges that you're pointing out, I just want to be one to say, we appreciate you using that location and not abandoning it. Reusing those locations are important for a community, and we appreciate the efforts to do that.
Well, the client is really big on community. He likes to be a part of it. And, you know, when he looks into these things and he talks, he doesn't just go do what he wants to do. He talks to the manager and everyone else. And so he, just like the bucket and everything else, he does his best to be a part of the community. So he's excited, and his volume is so high, he doesn't want to shut it down either. So there's other needs there.
I have fond memories of the place. I met the colonel there one time.
Yeah.
He was here, so visited Casa Grande, that was a long time.
If that's not dating yourself, huh?
Well, I managed the Pizza Hut across the street before it was torn down and moved over to.
Yeah.
They did the same thing that what you're doing, is they built next door and did that, and so it made a great difference in theirs. I'm glad to see that you're able to keep it open, so that way it doesn't shut down for 6 months and everyone loses interest in your business.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? Anything on that?
We just wanted to talk about chicken. You can tell by looking at us, we eat chicken.
Well, that's what, I mean,
We
I'm
all
up
eat
here
our
'cause
share.
I put a hurting on chicken too, so.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Anyone from the public like to speak about it? None? We can bring it back and talk more chicken, or we can,
We got the
Vote on
last
it.
3 motions for you.
yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve DSA-21-00038, conditional use permit to allow quick serve drive-through restaurant in a B2 zone with the recommendations of the staff.
Second.
Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Aye.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McBride,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to make a motion, DSA-21-00039, for a major site plan for a 2,360 square foot building with a new parking lot with the recommendations of the staff.
Second.
And could I have another roll call vote, please?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Yes.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McBride,
Yes.
And the last motion of the night, make a motion to approve DSA-21-0040, preliminary replat to re-subdivide a portion of the Evergreen addition to Grande Subdivision Plot 29 into a single lot with approval of recommendations from the staff.
Second.
I'd like to mention, this is the first meeting in 4 years I made every motion.
That's based on us sitting here making motions.
And a fine job you did, Dennis.
Okay, could I get a roll call vote, please?
Member Peters,
Aye.
Member Benedict,
Aye.
Member Estrada,
Yes.
Member Dugan,
Yes.
Vice Chairman McBride,
Yes.
And one thing we should notice is that everything we passed was unanimous decision tonight. That is usually never happens.
And we ended it with chicken, so that was a great,
There you go. Ended your term with chicken.
yeah,
I love
that's my parting shot is chicken. Thank you very much, sir. And good luck
Yeah.
with it all. I will be one of your customers still yet.
Okay.
Okay, call to the public. Is there anyone in the public like to make any comments about anything that comes to mind? None? Okay, report by the planning director.
Mr. Vice Chair, we did approve a number of site plans administratively since your last meeting. We approved a site plan for Demon Brewing at 1162 West Tila Bend Highway to add 4,800 square feet of storage warehouse. I didn't even know we had a Demon Brewing, but I'll have to check that out. Next thing was a minor amendment to a site plan for Arizona Grain and 1203 North Schultz to add new truck dock and conveyor, storage container area, material storage tanks. Minor site plan approval for Arizona Water Company to construct a couple new well sites on Camino Mercado, east side of Camino Mercado. And minor amendment to the site plan for Meals on Wheels, the old Wendy's building on the Tanger Outlet, to add a walk-in freezer. And lastly, a major site plan for Watermill Express Water and Ice Kiosk at 1659 East Florence to relocate existing water kiosk and add an ice feature. Board of Adjustment, no decision since your last meeting. City Council did take on action on a number of items that you recommended approval to them on and approved them with resolutions and ordinances as noted in your agenda. So it looks like council's been pretty busy considering your recommendations. Also, we did provide you with our monthly planning application and building permit report. You can see that building and development activity continues to be strong in the community. And that's all I have tonight, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, sir, for that. One
Make
more
a-
motion?
Make a motion to close the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.